right, welcome in. Wrong side of the pond. He is DJ Schweitzer. I am Jeremy Lance. We've made it another week. We didn't do a podcast last week because the FA Cup, I don't know if you saw it, it wasn't that good. I mean, like a semi-pro team hosted Tottenham in like someone's backyard.
But I mean, that was an event in itself.
It was. I like the tweet of the guy that was like, hey, just hanging out in my garden watching Gareth Bale. And Gareth Bale replied to the tweet.
Oh, yeah. Insane. I mean, Gareth Bale was a meme unto himself throughout the majority of the match. Not only, replying to tweets, but also for a heated jacket that he was wearing. There's so much to appreciate about a Premier League club and the eyes of the world being turned on, like, truly what's barely more than an amateur ground. And, everyone had their favorite thing about that experience. You mentioned the tweet. I loved the two girls who were looking through the hole in their fence in their backyard and drinking out of very clear, like, glass champagne flutes.
Yeah. The best would have been if, like, Jose or someone after the win, like, walked over there and asked for a glass so he could and you just walk around like toasting the champagne glass. Like, yay!
Like, we beat top of the fence.
We beat bivocational soccer players. Yay!
Yeah, but that's part of the reason why we decided to take the week off is simply because it was that type of a weekend where the highlight was the fact that a mega club played at a itty bitty little postage stamp ground. Everyone got their laughs about it. And we were like, hey, we don't need to record a podcast this week. Let's get on and deal with some New Year business that we needed to attend to. But we're back this week with just a lot, it feels like, right? Like it's been 2 weeks since we recorded, but it feels a bit like an eternity.
Yeah, I mean, the last time we recorded, we were getting all hyped up for this awesome Liverpool Manchester United match. We since learned that we were actually going to get a double dose of that as the FA Cup heading our way this weekend also has that matchup. And then we got all hyped up for the first one, and apparently we all have amnesia because that matchup has sucked for years, and we thought somehow just because it was 1 versus 2, or technically 1 versus 3, because Leicester actually was second place heading into that match, that it was just somehow going to be miraculously like unreal, and of course it totally wasn't. It was the suck fest stalemate that it has been oh so often.
Yeah, I mean, anyone who saw where the match was being played, behind the paywall, on Peacock, premium, of course, not free to air Peacock.
Imagine if you burned your 7-day trial just for that match.
It's a harsh one. It's a really harsh one.
Yeah, that's gonna keep you up at night.
Yeah, those are the types of things that really do your brand and your business of expanding your brand wonders. Chugging a high profile match behind a paywall and then them drudging it out to a 0-0 draw and making everyone feel like they tossed their money directly down the internet toilet.
Well, when the network that it would otherwise be played on is allegedly dying in the next 8 months, I guess that's what you got to do.
I suppose so. Other things that we got to do before we actually get into the rest of the weekend that wasn't a dull Manchester United Liverpool affair. Fantasy.
There was some.
There was a little bit.
Actually, I had fantasy. I had a fantasy over the weekend of having a couch in my basement.
Great story. Go check that out on Twitter at Jeremy Lance.
I may or may not have sold a brand new couch. It worked out in the end. Everything's fine. I'm sitting on it now. I'm enjoying some bourbon, but well, that's a moment.
It certainly was an enjoyable moment that you got to share. I'm glad that we get to laugh about it because you can actually put your feet up on that brand new couch right now.
Well, yeah, we're laughing now because the couch works. However, had the couch not worked, we would be laughing. I would just probably still need another week or so to get to that point.
we wouldn't be talking about it on the show this week, that's for sure.
No, that would be on next week's episode.
Yeah. Well, let's stop putting off the fantasy update and quit talking about couches. You improved 4 places. Congratulations. 73rd place in the
Wow.
league. I fell 2 places to 33rd in the league. Tyler Kelly's Ole Can't Drive, 5th show in a row on top for him. Congratulations, Tyler. You're probably owed some wristbands at this point from Added Time Outfitters. So there's your fantasy update. Let's get over into that title race, which is now completely blown open, in part by Liverpool and United deciding to bore everyone to sleep after they paid to watch it happen. The table is, and I think we've been talking about this is like a recurring theme every week now at this point, but the table is ridiculous. Like the last time we recorded, we were talking about United top, Liverpool top of the table, Manchester City is coming up, like all these teams, and lo and behold, it's Leicester City who are now sitting on top of the table when we are recording on a Wednesday night here in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Yeah. We were going into it going like, well, this is going to be now United's going to take over. And now it's less just like then between the two podcasts, we've had 3 teams in first place.
It's that season. Like
it is. But you know
really
what?
Is that season.
I was talking about it today with the guys at work. Like we've been spoiled the last couple seasons to where by this point we know who the contenders were. Like they were the same 2 teams. It was City and Liverpool were the only 2 contenders really left. Maybe Spurs in like one of those seasons, but City and Liverpool were the 2 contenders we had left by this point the past 3 seasons. And so now that we actually are finding ourselves here in, I mean, mid to like sort of late January, which is kind of insane that we're already this deep. We're almost a month in on what already looks to be another not awesome year, and we have Leicester City in first, Liverpool second, Man United third, City in fourth. Spurs are still there. If you even want to just go 1 point past where Spurs are at, you got like guys like Everton and West Ham are like just outside of that realm. Like you have all these teams that are technically within shout. Now, which teams actually legitimately on paper, logically make sense? These guys are contenders. I mean, I think it's still Spurs and up, right?
I mean, we can't rule out Everton at this point, really.
Sure, we really shouldn't. You're right.
And by that same extension, West Ham should be in the discussion too. I mean, they lose 10
points from Moisey, but whatever.
Yeah, and like realistically, do I think West Ham are going to win the league? No. Like if anyone's going to pull another Leicester off, it's going to be Leicester themselves.
Right.
And they're deservedly in this discussion. They've been in this frame of the discussion for the last few years now. So this isn't an anomaly for them anymore. And you look at all these sides in the top 8, and I'm extending this down to where Chelsea currently sit for understandable reasons here in a moment.
Wow.
Of those
that
teams,
is generous.
Yeah. But of those teams, I think only Manchester City and West Ham are the only 2 teams that haven't really led the table for like a week or 2 at this point in the season, right? Like we've seen Leicester on top now. United
that's true.
On top. Liverpool have been on top. Tottenham have been on top. Everton have been on top. Chelsea have been on top. Of those 8 teams, only 2 have not.
Chelsea was on top like a month ago, and now they're already dead.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about at that time that Spurs were dead. Now Chelsea are even further back in that place, and Spurs are hovering just ahead of them. I honestly feel like, and I do think we're going to see, City have been slowly rising their way up into this discussion. They're now just 3 points off the top after their miserable starts. I do think we have to start having the discussion about this is what it's going to be like for the rest of the season. Like, I do think we're going to be entering the final month of the season, and there's probably going to be four, maybe even 5 teams still in frame because everything has been so unpredictable. anyone can beat anyone this year. Like that's except for Sheffield United, who can't literally
Right.
like find a win in any way, shape, or form.
Can't do it. Can't
Anyone
do
can
it.
beat anyone. And because of that, we just keep getting these chaotic results where each week we're talking about, oh, this team's in the title race. Oh, is this team in the title race? They are until 2 weeks later when they're not. And I think we're going to continue to see that, even though I think we'll start to see a little bit of a flatlining of the trend at the top of the table where we'll see like a City and maybe a United and a Liverpool that are really going to kind of pull the pack upward with them and elongate out this, because I just, you can't see the chaos being this consistent for another month or two.
We're going to a sports book right now, you and me. We each have 4 $1 bills. You can place it wherever you want. Where are you putting those $4? You can split it up, whatever you want to do. Where are those $4 going?
I'm just gonna keep it simple, $1 a piece. You got to put one on your own team. Got to throw $1 away at
Okay.
minimum. So I'll put one on Spurs. They got Jose
So you
Mourinho,
want a
Harry
dollar
Kane.
on Spurs. So you
I
going
would
a
put
buck on Spurs?
I would do a buck on Spurs. I'm gonna put $2 on Manchester City. I fear them getting
Whoa.
healthy and finally getting their heads on straight. Like they've been out without Sergio Aguero pretty much the entire season, and he's now coming back into that equation. And while he's reaching the zenith and tail end of his career, he's still Sergio Aguero, and he's going to find himself in the right spot at the right time more often than not. And I feel like they're starting to figure themselves out in a very chaotic sea. Um, that last dollar, that's the tricky one. Like I'm not sure what to do with that last dollar, and I maybe Liverpool. I don't know. I mean, I really
Yeah,
don't know.
it's a safe one. That's a safe one to put a dollar on.
Where are you putting your four?
I think I would go like a buck on United, a buck on Leicester City, and give me $2 on Liverpool. Which means I'm basically saying I don't think it's gonna be City. I don't think it's gonna be Spurs or anyone else. Like, I guess the City one is the big gamble, right? That I'm just completely boxing them out. But like, I mean, you look at United, you look at Leicester City, you look at Liverpool, like they're right up there at the top. And honestly, like the ebbs and flows of this crazy season, like I don't see where like one of those couldn't pull it off.
Yeah, I mean, I feel bad for you that you're not putting any faith at all in Frank's, potentially no longer Frank's, boys.
Thomas Tuchel's Chelsea.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm
Um,
putting money on that yet.
no. But I know it's just I think that we have a diversity in opinion. It essentially is the halfway point in the season. It feels like such unfamiliar territory. Like you talked at the beginning of the segment about how we've been lucky, and I don't know that we've been lucky by that extension. It's cool, I guess, seeing teams peel away from the pack. I enjoy this until Spurs lose matches or drop points that they shouldn't, much like they did with Fulham,
Mm-hmm.
right? But this is enjoyable. Like I
Yeah.
like the idea. Like the other day, what was it? I flipped on like it was like Aston Villa and someone else small that you wouldn't expect to be an exciting match, and it was wild. Like it was a wild match, and I think that's what's great about this year is anything can happen in any game, and whether it's the lack of fans, whether it's COVID, whether it's whatever. This has just been a really wild season, and I don't think it's going to get any less wild.
You, you mentioned it. I guess we do need to rip this Band-Aid off. Today, speaking of top of the table, Leicester City, they got there by way of a 2-0 win over Chelsea. Chelsea heading into the match with The Athletic reporting that it was essentially a when, not if, on Frank Lampard's dismissal. And that had they lost this match today, which they did, that this could very easily and most likely be curtains But possibly, I mean, potentially by the time this podcast posts, by the time Joe Biden's hand is on that Bible tomorrow, Frank Lampard could be out on the streets.
So temp check. How do you
Cold.
how likely do you feel that scenario is to happen where he gets the sack?
Flip a coin.
50-50.
Listen, we are Chelsea Football Club. We have no history because we choose to do this every 18 months.
I was gonna say you could flip a coin, but Abramovich only has a double-headed coin. You know, like he's like shit. Well, it's heads. You're gone. And yeah, I'm kind of with you. I feel like the trend is Chelsea will can him.
Should we? No. I mean, I think. Well, should we? Maybe. Should we? Maybe, because as much as I love Frank, as much as I think Frank should get more time, as much as I think that this really is his first actual year as a Premier League manager with big money signings and having to make that work. As much as I don't want them to, and I think he should get more time. Listen, he is not without blame in any of this. It's not like it's just bad luck for Frank. Like, there is definitely questions on the way he has brought in all these big signings and the way he has chosen to implement them. Now, part of that is you get a guy like Timo Werner and you very quickly lose faith in him, and you just need to get a win. So, Tammy, get on out there. Drew, get on out there. Let's get a goal. You got a guy like Kai Havertz that, and I think this will later be fully documented and will be one of those big, like, feature stories. This man was, it seems like, severely impacted by getting COVID. I mean, you see him out there and he is not playing. He is not at that gear. He doesn't currently have that gear that he should have and did have last year. So you do have that. You do have the fact that you still didn't really do enough to bring in backline reinforcements to give Chelsea a strong, sturdy back line that will allow all of these pacey guys in the midfield and in the attack to run around and do their business and not have to worry about tracking back and trying to control the ball through the midfield and go back and defend and all this crap. I do feel like he is doing some mismanaging. I do feel like he still should be able to be given time to do it right. But this is Chelsea Football Club. This is what we do. He will be canned. We will bring in the next big name. He will do fine for a year and a half, and we'll do it all again. And that's what we're doing now. That's our thing. Maybe we'll win a title or some other trophy at some point. Remember, the last two managers that Chelsea Football Club had, their last match before getting fired were cup-winning matches.
And you guys might have had one of those.
Yeah. And yeah, it's that just kind of says where we're at as a club is we're just so fleeting with this managerial situation, and I think it's just kind of, I don't know how we get out of this rut outside of just getting a manager that literally hits the ground running so hard that for years there literally isn't an ounce of reason given to fire him. I don't know if we ever snap out of this cycle.
I mean, that sounds about right. But I mean, here's the other angle to all of this. You've talked about whether or not he should go and is it deserving and all that kind of fun stuff. But this is something that we talked about back when Frank first got hired, and it's this whole concept of don't hire your heroes. How do you feel about Chelsea sacking him? Like, how does that make you
This is
feel?
the reason I didn't want them to hire him. I didn't want them to hire Frank Lampard because that would mean they would eventually have to fire Frank Lampard. And that's just a world I'm not wanting to exist in, is a world where Frank Lampard is cast out by the club that he is a legend of. It just sucks super hard. Especially if he goes out this way where he ultimately has nothing to show for it. I mean, even friggin' Ruud Gullit won a FA Cup. You know, he doesn't even have that because Pulisic's leg fell off in 10 minutes into the match. I don't know. This is the part I was fearing the most, and it does appear that this moment is upon us, and it sucks. This is why I hope they bring in a guy like Tuchel or something like that, who's going to hopefully be able to have such an instant impact, especially with the makeup of this club currently, and especially since we apparently, according to all the hot rumors, we're already in pole position to get Eric Haaland this summer. So apparently that's going to happen. So maybe Tuchel's a good move for that. I don't know how the two of them got along. I guess he wasn't there yet. Right?
Yeah, he wasn't even there then. So
now he got sacked before that. So okay, so it's new blood, but still, it's Bundesliga talent.
Well, we'll have to wait and see, and actually, wait to see if Frank does get the sack. I would presume by the time this gets published, this will be something that is actually in the past.
We'll know.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's either getting fired tomorrow or it doesn't happen yet.
It'll happen by the next show.
Right.
Or the one after.
Luckily,
that.
I think they play like Luton or something stupid in the FA Cup, so like they got a gimme at some point.
Maybe one last way to send Frank out with a bit of glory before he passes on into the alumni club that is Chelsea's former managers. Let's move on from the Premier League. I mean, there was lots of stuff that's obviously unfolded. We're having like 2 matches a week at this point still.
Sure.
Anything else we really need to hit before we get into the next topic on the docket?
Not really. I mean, yeah, I was trying to look at like matches that matter. Obviously, the one today, Leicester City going top of the table. That was a big one. Besides that, some of these teams like Villa and obviously West Ham is finding some form right now and gets them all the way up into 7th place. Miguel Antonio comes back and he's instantly making an impact on that roster. It'll really be interesting to see what this West Ham team can do with this momentum, how long they can carry it, and where it can ultimately leave them. And could they be kind of that surprise dark horse club that does find themselves in a European position when we're at the end, which of all the seasons, the way that things are congested now and all these teams in the hunt, if you manage to pull out a Europa spot off the standings, like you had a heck of a year. Mm-hmm. I mean, unless you're like one of like the really top teams and that's all you have pulled out, then it's not. But like for a club like West Ham to find themselves in that position and hold on to something like that would be pretty massive.
Yeah, and it's been a while since they found themselves in European competition, but a lot for them will be up to whether or not they can strengthen, and I think that's what a lot of clubs are currently looking at in a very weird January. Right. Obviously, tail end of this. Hopefully, the tail end. Hopefully, not putting the cart before the horse here, but the tail end of this.
Knock on some wood right here.
Yeah, I know, right? Experience, and it's certainly impacting, I think, how teams are approaching this really chaotic time of the year with the transfer window, and that really brings us into that next topic, which you titled the COVID transfer window.
Right.
And we're midway through this month at this point, and it has been like it's typically quiet at the first half of the month to begin with, but it has been painstakingly quiet as far as transfer rumors and actual moves getting done.
Right. Because there's at least actual deals like sounding like they're getting done, and like the whole like, oh, this guy's been left out of the roster, and that means or the lineup, that means he's going to be signing here in the next couple of days. Like we don't even have rumors. Like, is there any big club in England that's that's linked with someone? Not really, right? Like, there's no big like, oh, United's going to be in for this guy. Like, even the rumors that do exist, I mentioned a second ago with Chelsea, like, there's summer rumors that exist.
I mean, there's an inordinate amount of like pre-contract talk right now, right?
Well, I think that's because, in summer things were still, the bottom lines at clubs hadn't been fully impacted yet. But now here we are, another half season of virtually no attendance. We had that hot like 2 weeks there where like 5 clubs got to invite like 1,000 people. That lasted all of about like 12 days. And I think, and just like we are in every facet of life right now, every facet of the economy, we are really starting to see the burden of the economic fallout hit. And I think that's what we're seeing here is like, dude, clubs aren't like, what club wants to throw a bunch of money around right now? Even the really rich clubs know that that's just not a smart move at the moment.
No, I mean that is why we're not seeing anything happen. I think it's the sole reason is, we saw last year a lot of these players take big pay cuts so that club staff wouldn't be laid off, and now what we've seen is a lot of those clubs have still had to lay those people off. Like a lot's been made of Arsenal players taking a big pay cut, and then Arsenal turning around and laying all those people off just a few months ago.
Laying off Gunnersaurus.
Yeah, and it's.
And now, didn't they just reapply for another like big government handout?
They did. And I think Spurs did too, to be fair. It's just we're reaching that point where clubs are feeling that pinch, and if that pinch is being felt in England where it is being quiet, I mean, there's business being done, there are loans that are happening. I think we are going to see a lot of loans at the end of this window. I wouldn't be shocked at all if that's how this manifests itself. But if England's feeling that pressure pinch where the Premier League and all of its riches, I can't even fathom what it's like in Spain and Italy, where there is a true fiscal crisis that's on the cusp for a lot of these clubs. There's the talk of the amount of debt held by Spanish soccer clubs is in like the billions of dollars range.
Well, I mean, Spanish soccer has been a house of cards for a few years, and something like this is just going to come around and just destroy it.
Yeah, I mean, it's you expect not just a card or two to get kicked out by this. It's like the card table legs got kicked out, and I think I truly am worried that we're going to see a pretty big fallout from this in the next year to come. And
I mean, the financial ramifications of this will echo on for several years.
Oh, easy. And we were
that's
already
not even a football thing. That's just a life. That's just general. General.
Everything will be a little COVID hungover for a few years, but it has been a quiet transfer window for that reason. And like I was trying to look through and to see like, hey, what's been the biggest move? It's easily one that just happened, and that's Ozil heading to Fenerbahce. And obviously people in Washington D.C. will be a little upset about that, I guess. But
Bummer.
But that's the type of window where we're talking about. Like, yeah, Ozil's a big name player to move on, and yeah, it's cool that he's going to another Champions League club. He's always loved that team, given that his family's Turkish, and that's cool. Yeah. But like normally we'd be talking about like Mbappe moving to Real Madrid, or Neymar heading back to Barcelona. I mean, we're talking about Spanish clubs that are in trouble. Like Barcelona's finances are a mess right now, and you like that's why they're not buying anyone. But you're seeing Gigi Wijnaldum linked to them on a move in the summer. Like that's what we're seeing is pre-contracts for players going out of contract. And we're going to see loans. And I think that's
they're
how
they're gonna have to sell off a bunch of dudes, and then that Brathwaite dude's actually gonna get minutes.
he's been getting minutes for him and scoring goals
God.
too, which is crazy. Talk about weirdest signings of all time. But I don't think it's going to be much more loud.
Yeah.
Like I think we'll see a little bit of movement at the end of the window, and it's going to be a bit of a whisper close. And we've been on that trend a little bit in January as of late.
I really wonder, and I haven't heard too much about it, but just kind of like just thinking through this kind of stuff happening and this economic fallout, I really wonder if we would see like championship level clubs loaning out all their big like high wage players. I mean, just like how we see here in America, where we have lower level teams literally self-relegating so that they can just basically play like mainly like essentially like a U23s type roster and just get by on that as far as wages.
I mean, I wouldn't be shocked. Here's the issue though with these lower league teams, right? Like they already have these albatross contracts around their necks, and
right.
nobody wants that player at that rate. Otherwise, they would have gotten rid of them, and that then means they have to carry some of that, wage load even after they loan the players out. So I'm not saying that won't happen, but it shows you how complicated the current financial situation is within the sport. And look, everyone's facing these type of financial hardships right now. Minus billionaires who are still probably making profits off of these soccer teams somehow. But it's sucking the life out of what's normally a fun thing this time of year in soccer. And, if you were really pinning your hopes on your team remaking itself, this window, I would probably stop holding your breath right about now.
Right. So I looked through. Literally, like the only inbound move in the EPL that's happened so far is Robert Snodgrass to West Brom, and that's actually being investigated for wrongdoing. Like that might have been done not above board.
Big Sam doing something not above board? No way.
Who would have saw that coming?
A truly amazing, not surprising sequence of events there, though. Like literally the minute he's back, he makes an immediate signing, and it's like shady. Love Big Sam. Please don't kick him out, Premier League. We need more of that. But I was looking through like everything right now is like all whisper territory. And MLS clubs are heavily involved in this discussion right now, and understandably so. But you're seeing Jordan Morris to Swansea City. That's a weird one.
That's gonna be the move. That's gonna be the move of the window right there.
Falcao potentially to Portland.
I saw that one.
Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting move.
Merritt Paulson generally
a shrewd. Yeah, I heard he was kind of like egging it on a bit online, right?
He definitely was.
But like Portland's generally a shrewd, smart club when it comes to roster builds, and like a Falcao, washed up mid-30s Falcao doesn't fit in the realm of like how they go about adding guys to their roster.
No, it really does seem antithetical, but
yeah, if you told me like Chicago was in for Falcao, I'd be like, oh, that deal's totally gonna happen. Chicago would totally burn all of their money on Falcao to come and walk in 4 goals on the season.
Yeah, and then walk right out of the team after that season as well. Just some other potential names that are floating. Like there are discussions David Alaba potentially leaving Bayern Munich for, pastures anew. I mentioned earlier, Gigi Wijnaldum seems likely to sign a pre-contract with Barcelona. Christian Eriksen is wanting to go anywhere that's not Inter.
That
Isco,
didn't work out, eh?
yeah, I'm sure Isco will have a bunch of suitors. There's talk of Martin Odegaard also wanting out of Real Madrid. Like it sounds like a lot of like these clubs that have stockpiled players kind of over the last few seasons. That's where we're kind of seeing a little bit of this. And it's getting increasingly difficult to move big name players just because of the costs. And there's just a disturbing lack of money flowing through football at the moment.
Make more money, billionaires. We need you to make more money and spend it around this league.
Yeah.
Come on, let's go. Here's like, I guess the next one. I guess the next part of this is like, and we talked about you mentioned, wages kind of being trimmed back so that staff didn't get cut, but like long term, we're seeing this in all the American sports where there's salary caps, and generally the salary cap season by season increases by like 3 to 7 million, and almost every league, I think they're saying the NFL is going to even do this come next year. There's going to be no increase. That $3 to $7 million increase per year is not going to happen for the cap. From a European soccer standpoint, from a EPL standpoint, are we going to start to really see like the wage bills getting trimmed at some of these clubs like pretty good?
Yeah, I mean, I would presume that clubs are now not signing as rich of deals as they previously were. Like, I can't imagine that's not something that's happening now, which has got to be disappointing for players who've been like angling for a move for like a year or so, and then like they know their market value is getting cut, and now they know their wages are going to get cut too. But I'm certain that's already happening. The real question is like how many more of these clubs will see players willing to sacrifice some of their money, right? Like willingly giving it up, to benefit either the club or the workers themselves. I think we'll see some more of that. I don't know. It's gonna become like really interesting, I think, and I think the lower down the pyramids you go is where we're going to see this be the most interesting, which is sad. But it's going to continue trends that we've been seeing where, clubs are filing for administration over in the UK or, self-relegating here in the US, as we've seen with North Carolina FC, which is a club I'm truly shocked has done that.
Yeah, they were not high on the list of if you told me like, hey, a USL team, hey, there could definitely still be more by the time the season starts. But like if you were to ask me which USL team I thought, they were not going to make like the top 10 on that one. I would have put your Hartfords and your some of your newer clubs that really hadn't even got really a head of steam under them yet. I would have put them high up on that list.
But I think we're going to see more and more of those types of things, which no one wants to see, but it's the reality that we're all living in at the moment. Speaking of, and you talked about, the NFL that we've seen this in, extending their current CBA arrangements. That's something that we're seeing MLS proposing to their players union right now as well.
What was the other thing they were gonna do? What was the like the legal term of what happened to the CBA?
The force majeure.
Force majeure. I almost said a moosh boosh, but that's not it.
All right, Joey over there, butchering the French, but no, it's MLS is feeling this pinch too, and this is definitely a league that is reliant to an extent on ticket revenue, just like the lower leagues are around the world and here in the U.S. too. And MLS is like, there are a lot of balls in the air still for MLS. Like this last season was weird, and it's seeming and it's seeming likely that this season's going to be weird too. And
well, this season we know is going to be weird. You know why? Because it's late January and we still don't know any parameters of what is happening with this season. We know nothing. We don't know when we're starting. We don't know when preseason starts. Will there be a preseason? Will there be the similar kind of setup with last year where you're really just playing the teams like, within like a couple hundred miles of where you're located? So is it going to be like the regionalized schedules for the whole year? You got to figure out what on earth you're doing with the 3 Canadian teams. Like you're not going to make them go to Hartford, Connecticut again, are you? And live there for an entire 7 months? That seems like a no-go. There is so many questions on what on earth MLS is going to do to make 2021 work. I think that there's ways to make it work. I don't think it's impossible, and I don't think it's something that people need to get all doom and gloom about or think it's just going to be a complete trash fire. I mean, it might, but then it wouldn't be MLS if it wasn't. But I feel like by now we would kind of know something, right?
Yeah, you would hope, but we don't. Yeah, I had written down here when the hell are we starting? No one knows.
Right, we don't know.
And
there was reports that for a while there that it was going to start on
March.
time in early March, and then there was reports that maybe it won't, or maybe some teams actually, or there might be a staggered start where some of the teams play in March and some of the teams don't play till basically April. We've heard nothing more on that. MLS is back, part 2, Electric Boogaloo. I don't know. Is it happening? I'm for it.
Yeah.
I mean, if at least do it maybe as a preseason tournament.
Or just make it the start of the season.
Well, I mean, maybe if you just did a tournament that kind of ran late February and early March, do that, let teams go home, have a mini camp, and then try to, maybe in April, things are a little better, things are looking a little more positive, and then you can start the season then. You start the season a little later. That also gives times for, those 2 stadiums in Ohio to finish being built so they can kind of open properly. And then, hey, pie in the sky, by July, you can start getting decent crowds back in there. I don't know, but again, there seems to be no blueprint handed out of any kind of any plan.
No. And an Apertura Clausura, maybe that would be, a cool little wrinkle for this year, right? I understand their reliance, their reluctance to make a choice on what to do here.
No, absolutely.
And obviously here's what I find frustrating about this, right? It's a single entity league where there should be more power to adjust themselves,
right,
than you would see in other leagues that don't have this type of setup. Obviously, there are just a lot of complications when you have a union involved. There are complications, with TV schedules, as the uncertainty of what Major League Baseball is going to be doing, and spring sports are going to be packed in college sports in a way that we haven't really seen before too. This is going to be it's a very complicated equation, and I'll be honest, I want to be critical of MLS here. I want to be the fan of me is kind of what the hell are we paying, or what are you guys getting paid for? But I don't envy them for a second. This seems like a regardless of what you do, this could all blow up in your face. And
absolutely. I mean,
while MLS has a penchant for blowing up things in their own faces, this isn't really their fault. And I don't want to be overly critical on something that is completely out of their control and that they're doing their best to plan for, but it's just impossible to do.
Yeah, no, it's hard. I mean, listen, even from my standpoint as someone who runs soccer leagues, and we generally have our big kickoff our outdoor seasons that we run, spring, summer, fall, generally happens early March. That's when we like to get everything rolling for the year. And we're normally this time of year, we would already kind of have dates figured out, stuff kind of set in stone, permits already being written up. Like we don't know when we can start things. We don't know when we can start things and actually expect people to safely be able to come out and play in large numbers. I totally understand it. Like the spring is a very unknown time because things could be pretty much the way they are right now, or things could be, relatively really great, or somewhere, in between on that scale. Like we don't know. It's going to be something. We don't know what it is.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing now is like I think we're past the point where we're going to see like total shutdown again. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like whether
Yeah.
we should do that or not. But like sports are here and they figured out how to mostly make them happen without them becoming super spreader events.
Sure.
So we're going to get it in some way, shape, or form. The question is how long it can continue on without fans. And I think this is a question every league is kind of grappling with right now is like, when's our doomsday date? And, Don Garber alluded to this. Hey, we lost a lot of money and I don't know that we can suffer another year like that. Listen, MLS can totally suffer another year like that. Like I'm infuriated by the concept of these billionaires being like, "Oh, this is too much." Like you guys signed on for a risk and an investment, and if there's anyone who can weather this, I struggle with the concept of billionaires crying like we can't handle this load. But I do think we could reach a point where we could see leagues pause and owners go like, look, I'm not saying we're out, but like I can't just keep absorbing these losses.
Right.
And it's either that or we see a stupid rush to get people back in the stadiums. And I really struggle to see either scenario not being the only solution that comes to fruition.
You're exactly right. And I think, and MLS more so than your NBA, your NHL, your MLB, your NFL. They, unlike those, we've talked about this for years. The one thing they don't have that those leagues do is a major television deal that is the lifeblood financially of the league. MLS doesn't have that. MLS, much like your, and I don't want to use the term because it's people, there's such a fight to not be this and not be perceived as this in America, but MLS, much like minor league sports, still relies very heavily on attendance in ways that the NFL and other leagues don't. And so they will be the league that feels it first and feels it the hardest.
Yeah, at least of the major, quote unquote leagues within the U.S.
Top level professional leagues in the U.S.
Yeah. Well, it's a scary time, and obviously, you don't want to see these type of things being discussed, but I think it's the reality that soccer finds itself in, both here and abroad. Obviously, and the mega clubs will be fine abroad, but it is gonna be something that's gonna impact the lower levels of the game, and will have ripple effects.
But like for real, they're not gonna make Toronto play in Hartford for like 7 months again, are they?
I don't think we can rule it out.
It's an right. It's an awkward thing for them because, like, you look at the NHL just started last week, and they have 6 Canadian teams. So they were like, well, we're just going to do regional play, and all you Canadian teams, you're in your own region. So you guys stay in Canada, play each other in Canada, and hopefully by the time playoffs come, we can get you out of there and you guys can play some other teams. But right now, you just keep playing the crap out of those 5 other teams.
Mm-hmm.
Can't really do that when you only have 3 teams. Vancouver and they're 3 teams that, 2 of them are moderately close to each other, and one of them is clear on the other side of the country.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you want to be like, hey, Canadian Premier League, you guys can just have them for a couple years.
Yeah. You guys are self-relegating to the the Canadian Premier League.
Yeah, and I mean,
see you in 2022.
There are a lot of people that would prefer that to be the scenario too, but
Sure.
I don't know. It's a I think they have to move those teams into the U.S. and if they want to have a season, and it's tough. Like I keep coming back around to like I don't envy anyone in the league office in MLS, and they're doing it with less people now too. Like they just had a big round of layoffs there as well.
Yeah.
Many of the people who I knew in that office, are no longer there, and that's an unfortunate thing. But we're feeling that pinch as you were saying, and what's weird is all this uncertainty in MLS. They're having no problem filling coaching vacancies. Like those are just getting snapped right up.
Quickly, your thoughts, Phil Neville. We talked about Chelsea learning what it feels like to hire a legend. Beckham's about ready to learn the golden rule of, hey, don't hire your friends.
Yeah, this seems like a bad move in every way, shape, or form. Not only does Phil Neville have an extremely thin resume as a coach, and I'm not besmirching his prior job by any stretch here. I think he didn't necessarily rate it that highly. And a lot of his language at the end of and at the beginning of that career with the women's national team in England.
Yeah, I would contend he was, even with that, though, I contend he was underqualified for that job.
Yes, like 100%. So I'm not besmirching the job, I'm besmirching the man. So there's that. But also like Phil, like there's literally nothing about Phil Neville that screams Miami, right? Like
no.
They intentionally built like a multicultural, like Latin based roster, and then they're bringing in freaking Phil Neville. It's not like he's come from a background of like swashbuckling sides, like the United side that he played for. But Phil was like the crappiest of that class of golden children, right? Like he was in the team, but it wasn't like he was a bang on regular in the team. Like he was fighting for his place. Whereas like his brother and the rest of that class of 93, 94, they turned into something, right? But Phil's not. Like he went on to Everton where he played under Moyes for 100 years, and they weren't playing like some crazy Latin American style soccer. Just the track record of English coaches in this league to begin with is bad, and this just.
Oh, come on, Owen Coyle. Those 18 months of Owen Coyle was awesome.
I mean, that's
him dying of heat in Houston. I mean, that was great. I feel like Inter Miami missed a golden opportunity that we all deep down really wanted to happen. You mentioned that Latin American culture, that that Spanish speaking culture. Dude, Miguel Herrera had just lost his job. Do you imagine how awesome that would have been? Miguel Herrera managing in MLS.
I mean,
oh my God.
Listen, I am 100% for that. Like the only other person who I think would hold a candle to the craziness that Miguel Herrera could potentially bring would be as if like you could resurrect Maradona and bring him back to the touchline. But
seriously, think about the multiple times that Herrera has been sent to the stands only to use a cell phone or a walkie-talkie to communicate to the bench. Like all just the BS that he did, that because he was such a big swinging D down there in Liga MX that they just let him get away with. Like And MLS would probably end up letting him get away with some of it too, because they're too big of wieners to actually like stand up to any of the big names in their league.
That's quite true. Yeah, it's just yeah, it's a weird appointment in general. Like Phil Neville, just there's literally no human on earth that really embodies Miami less than Phil Neville. Like Paul Scholes might be the only one.
Yeah.
So
but he already has a managerial gig, so
yeah,
he's good.
that is true. And then of course DC United also filled their Ben Olsen shaped hole with Argentine manager Hernan Losada. I'll be honest, I didn't know anything about him. He's the youngest coach in MLS currently at 38. He arrives from Belgium's Beerschot, which is still one of the coolest club names ever.
Seriously, how have I not heard about this club before this?
I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. It's probably pronounced like beer scotch or something like that, which isn't really any worse. But
still awesome.
Yeah. So congrats to DC for getting a coach, but not Mesut Ozil.
Can't have them all.
No,
can't win them all, eh?
Really can't.
Winners and wankers.
I think that's the part of the show we're at. Give me your wanker this week.
My wanker, I struggled to come up with one. But guys, I bought a couch that didn't fit my house and cut it up.
So
I am the wanker.
Yeah, you're the wanker.
It's me. It's me, guys.
You had to cut your brand new couch to put it in your basement that you specifically bought.
Oh, man. I'm literally staring at the cut right now. I'm sitting on the couch, staring at the cut. Just, oh, God. I really did that, didn't I?
It's like a couch scab that that'll pick at you for the rest of your life.
You're wanker.
My wanker is someone who you don't deserve a wanker award, but these people do, and I'm not exactly sure who deserves blame for this. It's likely a number of people, but whoever was in charge of the decision to make the Columbus Crew home kit next year not be yellow, what the hell?
Allegedly the FC Cincinnati one's finally making that switch to navy that had been rumored.
Also heard that too. But yeah, whether it's Adidas.
So wait, is it going to be just black or is it going to be?
No, it sounds like it's going to be white with maybe some yellow accents and black and gray potentially too.
Didn't they make a white with yellow before and everybody wanted to burn the stadium down?
That was that city flag inspired monstrosity that was teal and yellow and white and red.
The key to a city flag jersey is to have a city flag worth having a jersey over.
I do feel like they could have made that jersey work in ways that they chose not to use. And those, to be fair, those crazy teal shorts, I'm still trying to hunt down a pair of them. I freaking want a pair.
Oh, those actually were pretty hot. With the yellow crest just popping off.
Oh yeah, they were loud as hell. Still need one. But all that said, yeah, I'm whether it's Tim Bazbachenko or Adidas or D Haslam, this is a crime. Really frustrated by the idea that they're going to be going into this brand new stadium not wearing yellow kits. That just seems a little sacrilegious to me. And yeah, that's easy my wanker this week. What about your winner?
My winner, listen, we're all about a lot of things here on the podcast. We're about player manager appearances. We are about when a goalkeeper comes up for a last second corner and scores. We're all about when a goalkeeper wears a baseball cap during a match.
Mm-hmm.
And then the coup de grace when a goalkeeper scores from his own box.
Yes.
And that happened today. We take you to League Two. Newport County keeper Tom King. Go check it out on Twitter. Absolutely skies one from his box over the other keeper and in. Anytime it happens, it's the greatest thing ever.
Oh, it truly is. I think the best type of goalkeeper goal is the one where they come up on a late corner and mayhem ensues. Those are the best.
There was one recent. I think Tigres pulled that off sometime back in the spring. And it was.
Yeah, I feel like you're right. But what I love best about those long range goalkeeper goals is every time the goalkeepers feel like total a-holes for doing it.
Oh yeah, they
Like
feel.
they instantly feel terrible for the other goalkeeper. Like it's just always I really enjoy because everyone else on earth is like, the goalkeeper just scored, and the only person on earth who's disappointed about it, obviously, other than the team who got scored on, is
Right.
the goalkeeper.
I remember the one. You remember Tim Howard scored one, and it was mainly actually because it was windy,
And it took a
like
mega
it was
hop.
windy, and it just carried that thing,
Mhm.
and it made a crazy bounce, and it went in, and like Tim Howard looked like so embarrassed that he had scored that goal.
He celebrated it in a way that was like, I'm ashamed that I did that. Oh man, that is great. Yeah, I saw that. Good winner there. My winner this week, I went with the one and only Chris Pulisic, giving us
Oh God. Oh, oh dear Lord.
the modeling job
The
that
Adam
American
Levine
soccer.
photo shoot there.
We've
I
been waiting for
legitimately
this.
looked at the photos. I was like, wait, that's Adam. No, no, that's not Adam Levine. That's Pooley right there.
Listen,
Called Adam.
American soccer has a history of producing just astounding photo shoots, and I'm really glad that Chris has lived up to his potential and his legacy of being the next American star to make a complete ass of themselves during a photo shoot. My wife asked this. She wanted to know like whose publicist approves these things. Like you think back to
Wait,
the water fountain
have you
shoot.
read the article yet?
Oh yeah,
So
the
part of the
article's
article,
amazing.
he talks about how he's like kind of, because of the situation there, like he's kind of all on his own. And you're like, oh yeah. Because if you weren't all on your own, someone would have absolutely said, hey, this is not a good idea. Like these photos are terrible. You cannot print these photos. We are not agreeing. We are not agreeing to this interview based on not being able to clear photos.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean they
I,
had to br-
I, I was there. There's also this great back and forth in the interview where the interviewer is like, yeah, and the whole interview he's sitting there fiddling with this
the
crucifix
chain.
on a necklace that he's got around his neck, and I said, hey, is that really is that something that's very important to you? And Pulisic's like, what, the necklace? And the guy's like, no, God, no, I mean God, like you're holding a crucifix, not
Yeah.
the necklace, you boob.
I mean it was a truly amazing thing. Like you think about there was the controversy of the German Barbers Association who's mad at all the German players for bringing in haircuts, and then you see Christian Pulisic roll out the ultimate fade. You have to go like somewhere in Germany. There are a lot of really angry barbers over that make it onto a cover, let alone actually being anything that anyone would publish. Um,
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I don't know why is it? Why is it that American soccer players just year after year, decade after decade get conned into terrible photo shoots?
it's amazing. I put out a tweet before we started recording tonight, wanting to know why or who people preferred, provocative Pulisic, or a lustful Landon, thinking back to his glorious and well-known water fountain shoot, and we only got 3 responses, 2 from one person and 1 from another, and it was our good buddy Mike Ackley, who's saying neither and both at the same time. So he said that he doesn't want them and wants them both. And then our other good buddy Jeff Tebbets, now a fellow staff member at Cincinnati Soccer Talk alongside me, he provided that he would prefer a soup strainer Alexi Lawless, and he provided a picture of Alexi rocking that
I mean,
amazing
with
kind of.
Lawless, you have plenty of options, right?
Oh, you could
I mean,
pick like 50 versions of.
you have literal album covers.
I mean, he has
But
no endless amount of them.
yeah, I mean, there's once you go down that path, you got yourself so many choices, and they're all as as Mike put it, things that you want and don't want.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that brings us to the end of this week's show. As always, if you want to get involved, you can reach out to Jeremy. He's at Jeremy Lance on Twitter. I'm at Wrong Side of Pond. Hey, we'll probably do another podcast next week, but no promises.
I mean, sounds like a plan, but I don't know.
Depends on if you got another couch you got to shove into your basement.
That's true. If I got to do any more, couch repair.
Sounds like a new side business.
It it just might be. I only have the one remedy, so hope your couch is broken or had to be cut the same way mine was.
All right, folks. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, later.